was a typo, and I'm like, welcome to Under Two Capes. I am Jared, and I am here with Robert, but seeing as though we're talking about Superman, I wanted to play his intro, so... What's up?
Oh, yeah! I cannot wait. I cannot wait till tomorrow.
Yeah, I figured wait, I have to put on the new. I figured that seeing as though it's like we're talking about Superman, I might as well use like that intro.
Mm-hmm.
But speaking of which, I think I'll use a Superman themed intro, so I'll just go with this one. But so we're talking about our favorite Superman origin stories, which luckily there's a lot to talk about because Superman's origin is one of those like books. Stories that has been retold in the comics countless times.
Well, the funny thing is, originally it wasn't, but a long time it was just two origins, pre-crisis and post-crisis.
Yeah, exactly.
It was from Birthright onward that they started doing it more and more frequently.
So let's start with the weirdest one, American Alien.
Yeah, that is...
So here's the thing. So first off, this is written by Max Landis. We're not commenting on him as a person, just him as a writer because
he's a good writer. Overall, he can be a good writer.
I mean, I love Chronicle. So, but the problem with this is that it makes some creative choices that are like, what the hell were you thinking?
Right. Like, it's very fan-fiction-y. It's probably the most fan-fiction-y of them all.
Yeah, exactly. To the point where in American Alien, so Clark is in a plane crash where he crash lands right next to a party ship that's like for Bruce Wayne's birthday party. No one noticed Bruce wasn't there and training in the temple. Okay. But anyway, he meets Barbara Minerva and sleeps with Barbara Minerva. Yes, Cheetah. Pre-Cheetah, Barbara Minerva.
I don't get it.
I'm like, the only good part about that issue, besides Joelle Jones's art, which her art's always awesome, is when Deathstroke shows up to kill Bruce Wayne, not knowing it's Superman. He tries to like hit him with the sword, and it like bends the blade, and he goes, "What the hell?" And then Superman just throws Slade off the boat.
I do like though. There's also a nod to the whole back in the pre-crisis day. Oh, Superman and Batman, they just simply tweak their hairdos, put on a suit, and hey, I can't tell them apart.
Yeah, but with this, it's like it gets. You know what, Robert? You summarized it perfectly. This is an official fan fiction. It's what this is.
There's a lot of good moments, like the fight with Lobo at the end,
which is straight up taken for Man of Tomorrow, which I appreciate that. That's cool. And the idea of like Superman being much younger, because this is kind of pre-New 52, New 52 in that sense when you think about it.
I mean, to be fair, this is less of an origin, more of an early years.
Yeah, which, I mean, it's okay. Is this my favorite origin story? No. If I had to rate this, it would probably be 6 out of 10.
But I said this before, I do love at the backup, the one-page backup in the first issue with the Kents, and we find out so much just by looking at a desk. You know, the stuff on a desk, like, oh, they actually were expecting a child. Oh no, he got killed in a car crash or miscarried in a car crash.
Yeah, there's a lot in there, and I'm like, see, that's some cool stuff. It's just it's not enough to save the book. So
no, I can see why people do look at this as a favorite, though.
Yeah, do you agree with me that it's like a 6 out of 10?
Yes.
Yeah, because the art's great and the writing.
The idea.
The writings are pretty good. And Cameron says, "Hey guys, we're already talking about the best origin. As a Smallville fan, I am definitely going to be biased." Oh yeah, I'm sure.
No, I was saying the ideas can be interesting.
Let's go to.
Let's go in order. Let's start with the pre-crisis, the original.
All right. So explain that one.
Well, it's the typical. He got sent to Earth and to Earth. Okay, this is going to be the overall Silver Age, not just action number 1. All right. Yeah. He's sent to Earth as a baby. He's found by the Kents. They raise him. The Kents die, and he eventually goes to Metropolis, and becomes Superman. basically there, but there are some things that are tossed and ignored. Like, for example, makes very clear this is Kal-El disguised as Clark Kent, which I've always said always bothers me because it makes it seem like, so what, he just tossed away, being Clark after he became Superman?
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. And it just always, again, it laid the groundwork, but it was, in the long run, not meant for a time when you would have serious writing.
Yeah,
Does
exactly.
that make sense? Does that make sense? Like, this was written during a day where it was just for, like, oh, it's just for dumb kids, and the kids are going to rotate every couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree with that, Jared?
Yeah, I would. And it's like, so then you get to post-crisis, Man of Steel, essentially.
Which refined it, and some could say marvelized it to a point.
Yeah, that's even how Comic Pop described it, which to a degree I like it. My problems with it is like when it's like here's the thing. Here's the problem that every Superman origin to a degree has. They don't know how to properly balance the human Kryptonian thing.
I know. Now, going just by the origin alone, first of all, we had it be he was actually born on Earth. That was something that Byrne really wanted to do, where it had to be the birthing matrix, developed him, gestated him, and once it landed, he was born there.
Mm-hmm. That works.
Yep. And he grew up not knowing at all that he was an alien. In fact, one thing I also liked was they had to be a snowstorm hit, and they were cut off from the rest of the town for months, and they actually then were able to, you can then say, oh, that's how they passed it off. They claimed that Martha, they actually were finally able to have a kid, and Jonathan delivered him.
Yeah.
I like little details like that.
Yeah, and it's like Man of Steel was now from my perspective, Man of Steel was okay.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't the worst origin story because there are much worse. Like this way, I prefer Man of Steel over American Alien. I'm just gonna open up by saying,
well, yeah.
But the some of the issues I don't like is the way Krypton was like portrayed. That's like it never really sit well with me. But besides that.
Well, to be fair, though, we do know it could have been worse if you look at, remember the Superman, the Dark Side, that took the Kryptonians to the extreme.
Well, yeah, because Dark Side. But
no. I'm talking about the one where they were more robotic.
Yeah, exactly. Now, what I did like is, ironically, all the parts that were adapted in Zack Snyder's DC universe, because it's like a lot of the scenes that were taken are the ones where it's like, yes, he still struggles with either side. I also like how he's Superman before he meets Lois, because some Lois fans, again, not you, Robert, because I know you actually read comics, have basically said that Superman is not Superman without Lois. And I go, that's objectively wrong.
Now, I will also say this. I prefer having Lana be the childhood friend that knows over Pete.
Yeah. I'm more in favor of that.
Yeah, I hated how he told her the secret right before he took off. That was like what the hell, dude?
Yeah, exactly. And NJ, I don't want them to turn the Kryptonians into Viltrumites. I really hate that.
I am hoping that there's going to be wiggle room with whatever they do in this movie.
We'll see. But in terms of like, yeah, it's not horrible. It's just, in my opinion, this is just from my perspective. There are some funny moments, like where Clark is like working out, where like he has weights there because he's trying to explain why.
But he doesn't. But since he's so used to he doesn't know how much to put on there. So when Lois is like, "Oh come on, I do more better than that," I love that part.
I love that. That part is so good.
Because she's like, "Oh really? With your build, there's no way this is your normal amount. I lift better than it's one Lois lifts. I believe it."
Yeah, with me, I give it a solid 7 out of 10.
I would agree. After that, now this would be the definitive origin for the most part for the longest period until Birthright, which actually was for a very short time the official retconned origin.
Which I'm gonna tell you right now, Birthright gets a solid 9 out of 10 for me.
I take it, but not as a canon. If I treat it as when it was trying to replace Man of Steel, it hurt it. On its own standalone, I would agree.
Which here's why. There's this great moment. It's the bookend moment for the entire series, where Laura and Jor-El send Kal-El into space. And then at first they're like, we're not sure if he'll ever make it. As far as we knew, we just launched him into space and he'll hit a asteroid.
Which is probably how most versions that cared about their son felt.
Yeah, but in this, so Lex invents a machine that can like
communicate with the past.
Yeah, essentially, yeah, that.
And the whole reason was he just wanted someone of his intellect to talk to.
And then this scene always chokes me up whenever I read it. He actually, Superman gets to tell his parents, I made it.
Yep.
And
now,
literally a second before the planet blew up. So the L's die knowing their son made it.
Yep. Now, I would say this. This was also a case of showing how much Wade had finally been able to compromise his adoration of the pre-crisis. One, he kept businessman Lex. And that was in part due to the fact he's like, people like Bruce Timm, whom I respect and have utilized it, so I figured there might be some good there. And he kept the Kents alive.
Yeah, which I'm going to admit to something there. That's my problem with the new 52 Superman. Because it's like, and this is the problem that even Britt and I both share, because here's the thing. I like having Superman having his Earth parents there so he can go there and like consult. That was one of the cool parts of the Snyderverse, where like he could at least go to Martha and go the world's too big, Mom, and then she can like help ground him.
By the way, Britt has been loving when the Kents show up in Supergirl.
Oh yeah, I love we both love the Kents. Sorry, love you, Britt. Anyway.
But yeah, you have that. Now there is some dumb stuff like Soul Vision.
Yeah, and see, I was talking to you about this early today. That's my problem with like a lot of writers that try to tackle Superman. They're like, Superman's too overpowered. I'm gonna give him more powers. And I go, what? Wait.
And they don't even use it beyond the first issue.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, so your solution to overpowered Superman is to give him more powers.
Well, yeah, but to be fair, soul power is not like our useful ability.
No, it's definitely not. But still, it's in
fact, the only time that was ever used was after the Teen Titans, when Superboy went nuts and everything. It was actually trying to reinforce the idea of you didn't have a soul until now, and because he could see it. Yeah, that's exactly. The only time it ever had a use.
Now, what's our next origin, Robert?
After that would be Secret Origins, which became the official origin for a good length of time.
This is another series that has a fantastic book and thing where Clark first goes to Metropolis. Everyone's like hostile, like, watch where you're going. At the end of the book, after Superman has started to influence the city, he's like, don't worry, you'll fit in your
same woman. Yeah,
the same woman. That's fantastic. Now, the problems with this book and why I give it like a 7.5 to an 8, the art. Okay, I love Gary Frank's art. The problem is he's trying too hard to be Christopher Reeve.
You have that. Also, I feel it's too cherry picking.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you have moments like that, but also one moment that's always bothering me when Superman's flying and said, "I think I made a huge mistake." Mm-hmm. In my eyes, Superman should never say that out loud in the costume out in the open. The time he should be doing that is back home in his apartment.
Yeah, because it's the same principle as if you can make a god bleed, people will stop believing in him.
I know. So even if he's saying it to himself, he should never, for the reader, say it out in the open.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what
I'm not saying he can't doubt himself. I'm not saying that. Like I said, he should say it back home.
Yeah, but so then you get Metallo, and here's my other problem with it.
This part of it was clearly a prequel to New Krypton because of Sam Lane.
But I like the bulky Metallo, not the yellow and not the green and like orange suit he gets put in. I'm like, what the hell is this?
That's the pre-crisis look.
I do not like the pre-crisis look. That's just me. I'm like, this looks off.
I'm used to either the Big Mech or the Terminator.
Either of those are perfect for me. Perfect. But
yeah, but Superman and also, what the hell was Sam Lane just taking over the Daily Planet? What? That is crossing the line for a general like him.
Yeah, there would be so many different like levels of approval you would have to do something that drastic.
He would have been. He'd be court-martial. He'd be court-martial.
Yeah, if he did it like by if he took the initiative, in other words, and did that, but if he went through the proper channels, you have any idea how long that would take with the U.S. government?
Yeah, even someone of his stature still would have taken a while to do it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, I'll be honest. Oh, go ahead.
NJ asked a great question. Do you think that it'd be an interesting Elseworlds origin if Cal lands in Themyscira and the Amazons keep him as an exception to the rules and he'll be a playmate for Diana? That could be kind of cool. Seeing how he kind of changes if he's raised by the Amazons.
And you know what? They actually that's a kid where I could see them name him Jason or Atlas.
That could, I would like that.
They would not call him Clark.
No. See, I could see, yeah, exactly. And Atlas could probably be his superhero name, except it's like with an S, but still. So then we get to.
What I was going to add. They're also not a big fan of this Lex, to be honest. This Lex felt a little too egotistical.
And speaking of Gary Frank Sard.
Oh, yeah, the crack-headed look at the end. I mean, that was fine. I'm talking about adult Lex just felt like. Now, where do you stand on this? Do you prefer a Lex who won't even acknowledge that he knew Clark Kent back then, or one where he does? That was probably one of the things I liked about Secret Origins. Like, oh, yes, how are the Kents? As opposed to, I don't even know who you are.
I prefer him knowing.
Yeah, I mean, I get the logic that Wade was going for, but it just felt like, and that was a moment I loved in Action Comics 900 when he actually finds out the truth. It's like, that's the Kent, and that's Jonathan and Martha Kent. But why are you so upset unless Clark Kent? I love that moment of he knew and respected the Kents, and that he put two and two together.
That works. I like that. So,
but yeah, there's that. Then it's Earth 1.
So Earth 1 is one of the ones where I'm going to give it a 9 because Earth 1 is great. It changes because it's an Elseworlds. It's allowed to make changes, but it changes it keeps it consistent enough so it still feels like Superman, but it changes enough that it feels fresh.
One downside.
Yeah.
How many of those people that he tried to apply for jobs should be able to connect the dots?
Yeah. That's the
especially the Tony Stark wannabe.
Yeah, because I like how when he first shows up in Metropolis, he tries out for all these different jobs, and they show.
And he uses Clark Kent. He uses his name.
Yeah, and he shows off like his intelligence and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, that works. It's just, yeah, you're right. As soon as like Superman emerges, these people can't go like, I saw someone that had those similar powers, Clark Kent.
Exactly. And this was a case where I think I bought the whole, there's enough destruction here, but not overboard on the destruction.
Yeah, well, and by the way, you could tell Man of Steel the movie borrowed heavily from at least Volume 1.
I remember.
There were scenes that are straight up put on the screen, like him, like being like put down by the weight, which is great, by the way. I'm not knocking it, but they did a lot of great stuff with Earth 1, and yeah.
And then we have Not Lobo.
Yeah, he looks like Pretty Boy Lobo from the New 52. Remember that?
Yeah, of course I do. Yeah, he felt like it. Now
that's the other thing where Robert, you know how big of a fan of the New 52 I am, right? Even I can't defend that.
Nope. But yeah, and then this is then when we started to have the whole, I'm gonna give the real reason for Krypton's destruction and have it be, there was a neighbor. Now, I like the neighboring planet them going to war is what led to why Krypton never advanced to traveling the stars. I like that.
Hmm.
But, oh, it wasn't, it didn't just blow up. It was killed. It's like, really?
I see where He Who Must Not Be Named got the concept of Rogol Zar from.
And then redid it.
And then redid it. Worse.
Yep, definitely worse. I'm not a fan. And as we will later find out, oh, it was Zod, but Zod is Superman's uncle in this universe.
Which that's...
It's like, so wait, he's Zod L? Zod is his first name, not his last name?
Yeah, and I'm like, no, because that's not the way it kind of works, I don't think. Anyway,
Right.
Then Flashpoint happens. Wait, the Flashpoint Superman origin, we could talk about that.
He lands and crashes and explodes in Metropolis.
And he's technically raised by Lois's dad.
Who does respect him. Who does respect him.
That is something that is really cool. And when I was reading the Flashpoint Project Superman series, which again, Britt and I are going to talk about on Super Wonder, it's one of those, again, it's one of those changes that I'm looking at, I'm like, okay, this I could see. And it's like how he technically grows up with Lois.
Right. Now, this only works because in the tie-in. If you go by the main mini, not so much.
No, exactly. So then, Flashpoint happens. Then you get Grant Morrison's New 52,
which tried to modernize the pre-crisis.
Yeah, with all the Golden Age stuff, which I really liked, particularly because again, it's modernizing the Golden Age. I liked how at first he doesn't have the suit; he just has a T-shirt with an S on it and a cape.
But there's one. Yep. Sorry. Go ahead. There's one downside though. That downside is that he was originally supposed to only be on for 6 issues. It expanded after he had to do 2 fill-in issues, and that got his juices flowing for more. But it shows.
Yeah.
Painfully.
Yeah. So
because he rushes through the T-shirt era. That T-shirt era only lasts a few issues.
It should have lasted much longer, and I mean, it shows up later, like in the Supergirl series, like years later. But it's like he gets like the Kryptonian suit, which is supposed to be formal wear, and it looks like armor, but it's not armor.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I say that is definitely the big. Now, the overall, once he expanded the run, made it very good and put Superman in a different place. But it definitely felt so rushed when they just retold the Brainiac story. And by the end of it, if they had ended it there, it would have been a lousy ending. I'm sorry. It would have been this is standard. I'm sorry. This is standard.
Which, here's the other thing, Robert. Later, the next story, Superman comes from the future to see with the Legion of Superheroes. And I go, I thought the Legion didn't exist in the New 52 yet.
Exactly.
I'm like, wait a minute. And see, here's the problem with this, everyone. This is the weakness of the New 52.
Sorry.
No one coordinated because remember, this is taking place 5 years in the past. And the problem is then you have George Perez writing the current day Superman. And obviously he has to know what Grant's doing because Grant is in the past. And it's like no one was coordinating this. And even when they said, okay, the Legion doesn't exist. But I go, but we saw them in Grant's Superman. Like
exactly. And Paul Levitz had to claim, this is Earth 2's Legion.
Yeah. By the way, Dave says Smallville would have been great. A 3 or 4 season show was drawn out. Yeah, because here's the thing. It stopped being Smallville once he leaves Smallville. So I'm like, what?
But also, I'm sorry, Lana, that is one of my least favorite Lanas.
Well, here's the other problem.
Good actor at first, but you can still tell creator's pet.
Here's a problem with like this show. They basically did. So you tell me Superman already went through all of his main stories, like he fought Doomsday, he fought Zod, and all that stuff before he's Superman.
I know. Well, there's that as well. But I'm saying, Lana. I got to be honest. Lois was way better in Smallville than Lana ever was.
A little bit, yeah. And this is coming from someone that hates Lois. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, but Lois was way better. Lana was insufferable so much of the time.
Well, the other thing that's really funny that it's just, and then my other problem is like, so they have cameos from literally everyone but don't reference Bruce Wayne or Diana. Well, they reference Diana with Lois in a Halloween costume, but still. But the funny part, so I recently rewatched the JSA series of episodes, and here's the funny part. That Hawkman voice is awful. He sounds like Batman.
I think they were trying to go for the Bale voice.
Which I'm like, but that's not Hawkman.
Agreed.
I'm just, see, the problem with Smallville is like, even in the Smallville comics, Steve crash landed on the island as a kid. I'm like, what the? I don't understand this. After Clark left Smallville, they should have renamed the show to Metropolis and actually made a Superman show.
Yeah, but to be fair though, that most shows aren't able to survive if you do a name change like that.
Yeah, or just keep them in Smallville and end the show when that happens. But still, I get that you wanted to have Tom fight like Doomsday, even though that wasn't Doomsday. But still, it's like he's supposed to fight him out to become Superman and then die. This is not the way it's supposed to work. But that's my biggest problem with Smallville. In addition to the lame stuff, is that like he went through all of the big stories already. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
But anyway, so then you get to the Superman Reborn origin, which is basically just amalgamating post-crisis and this, I believe.
Yeah.
And I think they explained him wearing the new 52 armor as he was recovering from the battle with Doomsday and he needed armor.
Something like that. We'll find out in the new history.
Yeah, according to some of the covers, it looks like they're doing the story of Origin, but they're in the post-crisis costume.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, okay.
I still like Mark saying, well, when the president of the company is the guy who drew that story. I love that. It's like, yeah, Jim is throwing his weight around a little bit.
Well, also, that's the most relevant. That origin has, for the most part, been adapted into 2 movies. So
that too, and I'll be honest, it's better than Starro or them turning into trees.
Well, they can't do Starro because James Gunn killed him.
No. I'm talking about the comic origin.
No, I know, but here's what I'm saying with that. It's the last time people saw Starro was like him being killed by the Suicide Squad. That doesn't communicate the threat.
Well, that's the movie fans. The comic fans, if they wanted to keep it.
No, but I'm saying the regular fans that have become comic fans.
Yeah, I know, and I understand that. I'm just saying that there's still stuff because he is still a credible threat. You shouldn't just nerf him forever because of the movie.
Yeah, well, arguably he shouldn't have been used in that movie, period. But NJ says, so the Amazons raise Steve or so something keep him as a playmate. I don't know. It's really weird, NJ. Dave says, even Gotham did Batman's origin more believably in terms of Bruce meeting characters and having adventures before he became Batman. Well, yeah, here's the thing about Batman. Here's why that worked. Because Batman had adventures before he became Batman.
Yeah, heck, in pre-crisis, he was the original Robin.
Yeah, so that's why that works, because there's close to a decade of time between when he leaves Gotham to where he comes back as Batman, to where you could do like a lot of stuff in there.
Yep, just a sec.
What if there was a Superman story where Superman didn't land in Kansas but was found by Lex Luthor? Well, that's an episode of Smallville where he's found by Lionel Luthor instead of the Kents, and he becomes Clark Luthor and basically becomes a dick.
Yep, and then there was a joke version done in that Elsewhere Giant, but that was played for laughs, where Batman became Two-Face and then just shot him.
Yeah, and I was like, I'm not. there are a few like Elseworlds concepts that I don't like, and Superman being raised a Luthor is one of them.
Yeah. Now, Supergirl in that Supergirl's finest, at least.
And I lost you, Robert. But anyway, it's one of those things that's weird. Do you think Hippolyta or a majority of the Amazons would entertain the idea of keeping and raising a boy on the island? Maybe. I think it depends. Yeah, that version of Superman basically sounds like Homelander. That's kind of what he was. And before you ask, Homelander does not count as an origin for Superman, nor does Omni-Man. And okay. Oh man, there's two. Wait. Robert has his own Clone Saga.
Huh? How'd that happen?
I don't know. There's someone called Miles Warren. Yeah, but anyway,
No, wait. To be fair, Lex made clones.
Yeah, exactly. His cloned Australian son, who later turns out just to be him. And by the way, Ian says one of my favorite Elseworld stories for Superman is him being Batman raised by. Oh yeah,
the speeding bullet. Love speeding bullets.
That's what we could talk about. Speeding bullets. Where I love where so he's basically the '89 Batman where he does kill people. Like people criminals break into the Wayne Manor, and he like Batmans it up. And they just
well, to be fair, up until that point, he had been in denial. His first kill was Joe Chill, but it was an accident. Well, not an accident, an emotional triggering of his powers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then the other time, then it was he repressed it. He repressed it all until they came to his place and tried to rob him. And then he's like, "I remember."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but NJ says, yeah, they have no problem with kids and will help them regardless of gender, not including Tom King, of course. Well, yeah. By the way, Robert, speaking of Amazons, did you see the Red Sonja trailer?
Not yet.
That looks freaking dope.
I'm surprised they kept that under hush for so long.
Well, apparently they had issues finding a distributor. That's why it took so long. Which, by the way, they do the metal bikini.
Of course.
But I'm like, this is Hollywood, so I'm like, that's surprising me. But I'm like, it looks so good.
Yep. Again, I'm just so impressed that they were able to make, just keep it so hush.
Yeah, exactly. But in terms of like, okay, so let me ask you this: what's like your favorite comic book Superman origin?
On its standalone, on its own, Birthright. With secret, but as far as in continuity, Secret Origins.
Yeah, I could see that. With me, it's New 52, followed by Birthright, followed by Earth 1. Yeah, I mean, Secret Origins in my top 5. It's just the art kind of doesn't work for me. Like young Clark being just Christopher Reeve's head on a kid.
Oh, no, I agree with that. I agree with.
Speaking of adult heads on kids, Superman Superman Year 1.
Oh, yeah.
The crazy book.
First half was good. The first half was good.
The first half was good.
First book and a half.
First book, yeah, I would say first book half is pretty much that. But
sorry, ignore that. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. But it's like,
yeah, once he went to Atlantis is when it up. I actually like the idea about him joining the Navy.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that was a good idea.
Yeah, I really dug that. But it's like, it's once see, here's the problem with that though. It's like he goes from girl to girl to girl to girl to girl.
Exactly. Yeah, and even you felt it was disrespectful that Lois only got half an issue.
Yeah, she didn't even get a full issue. It was.
Hey, they meet and then boom, there's Diana. Who was Lois Lane?
Yeah, it was Lana, Lori, and don't get me started on Poseidon wanting to sleep with his own daughter. And then you get Lois for 2 seconds, and then it's like Diana, and then
Diana's already wanting to bang him right then and there.
I know, no, and it's mutual. So I'm the Super Wonder guy, and even I'm like, this is way too fast, guys.
Way too fast. Let me give you something to come back for.
Well, here's the thing. It's like we all know there was supposed to be a fourth issue, and then that fourth issue would have
Brainiac.
Brainiac, and then shown Clark and Diana like more organically gang together. But still, it's like it's ignoring that. It's just the fact that he goes from girl to. It's like he goes. I only have 4 issues.
Lana was the best one. Lana was the best handled.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Exactly. Lori was like this.
Lori, I'm sorry. Lori just felt she was there just because. What bothers me most now. Okay, I can somewhat, given how she's a mermaid, I could somewhat understand why then Clark would just focus on her and not Lana. You know, the romancing of a mermaid can overwhelm your love for someone you actually care for. But even there, Zendo, he never even brings her up once.
That's the other problem with the book, Robert, is like he forgets that the other women exist.
Again, Lois. It's just like gone, like again, less than an issue.
Yeah, exactly. And supposedly he was with Lois in the Dark Knight universe, but then Lois died. It's like
in Dark Knight, yeah, because it was long enough for him to have that pendant and actually be like, Lois, goodbye.
Yeah.
Now here would have been like, who's Lois?
Yeah, the problem with Frank is that he plays too fast and loose, and I go, what the? It gives you whiplash to a certain degree.
But the fact that and now I get it's also because things have been turned around. It's now Superman and book, so of course he's going to do better against Batman. But it was too one-sided.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah. Now as far as but yeah, like I said, those are my favorites to be. So from an overall writing standpoint, Birthright. From an in-continuity standpoint, definitely Secret Origins.
Yeah, exactly. The most well put together origin, Birthright.
Yeah, but although
from a story perspective,
again, the one bit of him shooting that one guy.
Oh,
and then catching the bullet. That felt like Superman would never do that. That's you, Mark Waid, doing that.
That's Batman. That's
I mean, Superman might freak some people out by threatening, doing the whole drop and catch them. That's one thing. Threatening to shoot them and then catch the bullet.
Yeah, exactly. And Corey Sims, no spoilers again. I'm going to tell you guys one more time. No.
Please, no spoilers. No spoilers.
Otherwise, I will time you out. And then Dave says the thing to remember about Miller's Superman Year One is that's an origin story for the Dark Knight Returns.
But even that doesn't make sense.
No, but Dave, the problem is from a storytelling. It's, ignoring the character choices. It's from a storytelling perspective that there's issues here.
Yeah, and again, it dismisses Lois so too fast that you're like, does he even have time to be Clark Kent in this universe?
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, this doesn't. I mean, we know he's Clark because he gets the job, but I'm just like,
he's already falling for Wendy. That should have been when they formed the Justice League or something. Not within his first, within his first few days on the job in Metropolis.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just like, I don't like this at all. Like,
part of me feels like they put Wonder Woman as well to not BVS.
Mm-hmm.
You want to bet that was the part that was done to not BVS?
It seems like it because Wonder Woman really plays zero role in that. Besides to have someone say, "Oh yeah, there's a Brainiac thing with the
and Lex, I still don't get Miller's Lex. Sorry.
But the idea of like Superman being a Navy SEAL, that's actually kind of cool. I like that.
Yeah, I really like that a lot.
I like where he's like destroying everyone in basic training because he's Superman, so of course, and where he doesn't want to kill anyone, so he just holds the grenade as it explodes.
But that still tips people off to something special about him.
Yeah, and then his CEO figures something out and just watches him walk into the ocean to go be with his mermaid bride.
And he tells him, go get him.
Yeah, but
Of course, that moment he enters to Atlantis is when it goes off the rails.
yeah, because here's the other problem with that. How long is he in Atlantis for?
Seems like a year or so.
It seems like that.
And then he forgot. He didn't even bring up Lori. He didn't even acknowledge Lori at the start of the third issue.
Here's the other issue, Robert. He doesn't even reference his parents at all.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah. So even his mom is a loved one, a woman that he forgets about.
I don't it's like I don't understand. It's like they were trying to approach each of the individual books as their own separate books.
By the way, since we're talking Superman, can we talk about the Treasury Edition for a moment?
Which I liked part of that with I didn't like, again, Wonder Woman being used as a mouthpiece to prop up Lois, but in terms of getting rid of ignoring crappy Maxima, yes.
Yes, guys, because okay, Jared, you tell them. You summarize what was our problem with what they did to Maxima beforehand.
Okay. So, context. Here's who Maxima is. Maxima is a princess from the planet Almerac, and she meets Superman because she wants to create an heir.
She wants babies. She wants his babies.
And figures Superman would be the ideal mate. That's Maxima. So she even served on the Justice League. In fact, she was on the crappy league that fought Doomsday. Anyway, so in a clearly agenda-driven move, because this is I use this word rarely. The following thing is woke as hell. This is woke.
Yep.
So they kill. They
make her a lesbian first.
Well, no. Don't they kill her and then replace her with a version that is a lesbian?
No. They make her a lesbian, which was a separate story. That would have been fine because you're like, okay, she's given up on Superman, she's given up on men altogether. But then it was later revealed that there is another Maxima, the one that is the man, the one who wants a man and everything. And they say, oh, she abducted the lesbian one and has been posing as her, basically saying the straight Maxima was a fake the whole time, and she's always been a lesbian.
That's where I'm like, okay, guys, you're not even hiding your agenda now. That's when I'm like, no, absolutely.
They hadn't touched her since. So when they brought her back here, they just ignored everything there and just went back to her pre-crisis. The only tweak they made was, instead of going completely nuts when Superman married Lois, it was when John was born.
Yeah, which I'm like, okay, it's fine. But the very fact that DC ignored that retcon is like, wow.
And then she tries to shack up with Cyborg Superman, or as Batman puts it,
Dime Store Superman. That was, as someone that has complained about Dan Jurgens referencing his characters all the time, or his version of the characters, I will approve of this because this is good.
And him using in the context of the story makes sense.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Because Eradicator wouldn't work.
Would say.
Yep, and Eradicator would not work at all.
No, because, yeah, exactly. But all in all, yeah. So Superman has a lot of cool origins. There's no origin that I would say is terrible. Terrible. There are some that are weak as hell. But there's none that I'm like, okay, this sucks. What were you thinking?
No, I also gotta say I like it how in Birthright they put more emphasis on Ma Kent helping out making the identity, whereas opposed to Man of Steel, it was Pa Kent originally.
Yeah, which okay, I'm cool with that. Exactly.
Even though it's not technically an origin, but it does count as his first year in Metropolis. Man and Superman that you and I went over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, does that kind of count as an origin story to a point?
Which one?
That's the one. That was the Marv Wolfman story that gave us an alternate take on Clark's first time in Metropolis. That's the one where he never wears the costume until the end. He has a bag over his head.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that? And it was more about his first times coming to Metropolis. Like he's a janitor at one point before he could get a job as a reporter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's weird. But it's like, but again, it's like there are so many cool like stories that you could do for like the Superman origin, even that aren't Superman stories, but still, I'm like, there's none of them as of yet, because there's still time. There's still time where it's like, this is the worst thing I've ever read. All of them, I'm
Right.
like, they range from to this is dope.
Now, and NJ has made clear, Wonder Woman does deck Cyborg Superman really good, and probably would have mopped the floor if Maxima didn't double team her.
By the way, I love in New 52 Supergirl, when Supergirl fights Wonder Woman, Wonder Woman wraps in the lasso and goes, okay, are you done now? Don't test my mercy. Like, that is badass. I'm going to bring that up. But I think it's a good place to leave it. So, all right. So, what is your favorite Superman origin story? Do you agree with us? Or there's some we missed? Anyway, so Robert, where can we find you and what have we got coming out on the channel?
I'll be seeing Superman tomorrow at 10 a.m.
Yeah, I'm seeing it pretty much when I'm done here.
Yep, I got Pro Teaches Noobs down below. And coming up when we get to lesson 575, Jared and I go over one more day.
Oh God.
Well, we did.
Yeah, I know. So as for me, Britt and I are, so tomorrow for CLD, it's just going to be us doing a spoiler review for Superman. It's going to be spoilers, so I don't want anyone telling me that I spoil the movie for them. It will be clearly labeled as spoiler. And we may have some guests on there. But so there's that. And then Super Wonder Legacy, Britt and I are going to be talking about Flashpoint, Superman, and Wonder Woman. For Amazon Answers, I'm going to be talking about the Azzarello run for Wonder Woman. And be sure to check out my Wonder Woman Wednesday, where I take advantage of the search engine and talk about why why Wonder Woman's a better superhero than Superman. Anyway, hey, work, everyone. And this is actually very appropriate. Lois Lane is Lois Lane. She belongs with General Zod. Zois and Max Sabat for life. We shall see you later.